Standard. Peace. Be seated. Well, good morning. My name is Greg Barnes, and it's my absolute privilege to welcome you to the 2023 Anzac Day dawn service here at Bargara. I thank the rain gods for finally giving it up. We're a little bit worried there, but I also thank you for turning out in such great numbers. I recognise the traditional owners of the land upon which we gather, and I pay respects to its leaders, past, present and emerging, and I recognise Indigenous soldiers who fought shoulder to shoulder with not only Australian troops, but also those of other ethnic groups in defence of this country. I recognise and welcome on behalf of a grateful community, our veterans and their families. Make no mistake about it, today is your day. This is your opportunity to demonstrate to the youth the true values of integrity, honour and dignity, all of which come hand in glove with the Anzac spirit. I extend a warm welcome to our official party. Ms. Liz Carson, representing Mr. Keith Pitt, MP, federal member for Hinkler, and the residents of the Hinkler electorate. Councillors Mayor Mitchell and Councillor Vince Haberman, OAM, representing the residents and staff of the Bundaberg Regional Council. Service Padre, the Reverend Jennifer Lynn, representing the Bargara Uniting Church, and also representing the many different beliefs of the Bargara community. Mr. Michael Ollison, representing the Bundaberg Services Club and the Sandhill Sports Club. We have with us Acting Inspector Glenn Cameron, representing the men and women of the Queensland Police Service. To our friends in Vignacourt, once again, we welcome each man, each woman, and each children located in your village town hall as we speak to you live from the Bargara foreshore. We recognise your Mayor, Monsieur Stéphane Ducotois, and his wife, Nathalie, and our ambassadors, Michael and Donna Fechner, who are assembled in the town hall to watch this broadcast. We thank you for looking after the resting places of our fallen diggers who fought to protect the values of all free nations. I'd also like to thank our cadets who, together with their predecessors, provide such an important role as the catapult party. It's not an easy task, and yet they do it so well. As this annual event continues to grow, I've decided that it's time to separate the role of the event coordinator from that of the Master of Ceremonies. And to this end, it's my pleasure to introduce your MC this morning, Mr. Bernie Strofelt. Bernie, do you want to join me? Bernie comes from a distinguished family of Bundabergians. He joined the Australian Army in January 1996 and was trained at the Australian Defence Force Academy and the Royal Military College. He served in multiple units on the east coast of Australia and was deployed to East Timor as part of the United Nations Peacekeeping Force and in Iraq as part of Operation Enduring Freedom in 2003. Then again, back to East Timor as part of Operation Astute in 2006. His service has enabled him to work with the British Royal Marines and the United States Marine Corps in his role as a specialist in amphibia operations. I now ask Kurt if he can take us to the digger.
It wasn't very far from the Somme River. We were sent into the line there, into a line of trenches, and they were mostly excavated in mud. So they were bloody collapsing as fast as it was possible to move in them. The mud was collapsing with the vibration caused by a lot of marching feet. On the duck boards, because we were marching on duck boards, sometimes you'd slip off a duck board and you'd be up to your knees almost in mud, clinging, stinking, bloody mud, composed mainly of the blood and guts of your predecessors in those places. And, oh, Jesus, I hate to think of it now. I don't want to remember it. But it was bloody. For a young boy as I was then, I was only 16. Now I'm making apologies for myself now, which I should not be doing. I should bloody well be proud of the fact that I was there. I wasn't proud. I was bloody frightened. I was scared bloody stiff. And I don't want to remember it. I'm bloody sorry to remember it. I try to eradicate it from memory. But it's not possible. It's not possible to eradicate some of those things. When you step down out of a watching point, a watching tower, and you put your big, heavy clad boots down in what you think is a piece of firm ground, and it happens to be should be a man with his chest exposed, and you step right onto his bloody chest, and you can hear the crackling of the bones.
Fred Strutt has passed away some years ago, as did his son before him, and his son can be heard at the end of that interview. I do get comments from members of the community saying that perhaps it's too graphic for our children, and I can understand where they're coming from. Warfare such as that experienced in the First World War and in the trenches of the Somme cannot be sanitized. And from what our kids are exposed to on almost a daily basis, I believe that Fred is very much a part of this service. I've no doubt that people will have different opinions, and I'm more than happy to hear them afterwards. But I think for many of us, we've actually adopted Fred as part of this service. Cadet Commander, please.
Aye, aye, sir! Catapult party! Slow march! Shun! Catapult party! Halt! Catapult party! Outward! Turn! Catapult party! Rest on arms!
You'll notice that for the first time in over 25 years, we have the Naval Cadets and the Army Cadets sharing the role of the catapult party. And I think it's well time that they do that. And I thank each and every one of them, including their commander, for the role that they play and hopefully will play into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, time for me to get off, and I'll pass you over to Bernie Schroefel.
Hey!
Thank you, Greg. It's an absolute honour to be here this morning, and it's wonderful to be on this stage on this brisk autumn morning for another Anzac Day. As part of this morning's ceremony, I'd love to discuss or have a chat with you about some of the lesser-known heroes of the Australian war machine. Some of the information that I have comes from the Australian War Memorial and some wonderful Australian authors. And I'd like to talk to you about the animals that have played a part in every conflict that Australia has taken part in. From the deserts of Egypt to the streets of Europe, the jungles of Borneo and Vietnam, and the high-altitude valleys of Afghanistan, our capability has always been complemented by our animal friends. You might be familiar with stories of Simpson and his donkey, or Sandy, General Bridges' horse, the only one of 136,000 horses to return home from the Middle East. Some of you may be aware that there were 6,000 camels used by the Desert Corps in World War I, carrying vast quantities of cargoes, troops and wounded across very arid terrain. There were other heroes amongst them. The 3rd Australian Tunnelling Company used canaries and mice to detect gas as part of their day-to-day work excavating and constructing bunkers and tunnel systems. Some of our diggers, when they deployed to forward bases in Egypt in World War I, took with them a variety of animals. These pets obviously couldn't continue in the journey further forward into the field, and they couldn't return home to Australia. Legend has it that Cairo Zoo was in possession of the best collection of Australian animals in the world right through till the 1950s. Dogs have also appeared in support roles in the Australian Engineers and in messenger roles in the First World War, but it wasn't until 1944 that the Australian Army formed its first dog platoon. The mateship and skill grew between man and dog through the decades and established a fine tradition of supporting our field-deployed troops. This relationship could be most recently seen in the Afghan campaign, where stories of explosive detection dogs, namely Zena and Sabi, were trained to find and detect explosives in that field. Zena was considered too timid for a Belgian Malinois to be trained for other roles, so she went on to have a profound career and uncovered tons of explosives during her several tours. Some of you may be familiar with a dog by the name of Sabi. There was reporting at the time of her particular story. It's tragic and heartwarming. She and her handler were involved in a firefight that was extremely tough. Her handler was injured, and through the firefight, Corporal Mark Donaldson was awarded the VC as a result of his actions on that day. Sadly, she was separated from her handler, and we all thought she was lost to the battle. She lived in the local wilderness and with the local tribes for 13 months before returning to Australia. She lived out her days in North Brisbane, and there's a park there named after her. On an interesting note, war dogs were not always highly trained as attack, explosive detection dogs or, rescue dogs. During 1941, a Private Moody from the 2nd 1st Machine Gun Battalion adopted a pup that he found in the western desert of Egypt. The dog became known as Horry. Horry took to his new friends with great admiration and great pride. He was a unit mascot and somewhat of a guard, often alerting the troops to the dangers of incoming aircraft. He was obviously very tough. He survived the sinking of the Costa Rica while he and his unit were being evacuated from Greece, and he was wounded with bomb shrapnel later in the war and was patched up by the guys in the unit. He returned to Australia with Private Moody in 1942, and despite rumours of having to be surrendered to the quarantine officials some years later, legend has it that he lived out his years near Corryong in Victoria. Our feathered friends have also contributed with great feats of valour. One may conjure up images of a fabulous wedge-tailed eagle in a daring feat of bravery. However, our more modestly gifted friends, the pigeons, have often saved the day. With communications being what they were in the 1940s, these were often used to carry messages. Some of them have flown a mile a minute for several hours to save ships in distress and also troops in distress in the jungle. Animals supporting humans in war have not been restricted to the traditional dogs, horses and camels and so forth that we may be familiar with. From my own experience, I lived for a short while in the docks of Qasr. Here, the US Navy mine clearings units used dolphins to find and mark suspected mines and unexploded ordnance. They did this on the riverbeds and the sea floor with great effectiveness. It was quite a sight to see them there, quite a sight to see them in action. That is, until your nostrils overcame the smell of the food that they were fed and the warm desert sun. It was something else. The contribution of these great friends continues beyond the battlefields and overseas deployments. Service dogs and other service animals now provide veterans with companionship and comfort that enables many to return to something of a more normal life as they return home from their active service. It is always interesting, though, to see that while technology and the mechanised capability of our Defence Force is growing at a great rate, it is always a little heartwarming to see that people and their animals are looking out for each other in one of the most harsh environments imaginable. If you'd like to read more about some of these stories and our wonderful friends, the Australian War Memorial Archives have a great detail of information. Australian authors such as Ian Hayden, Anthony Hill and Ian Idress also have an amazing set of books. For those interested, the 24th of February each year is the official national day for war animals in Australia, where the deeds of these fine friends, messengers, mascots and protectors are commemorated. As part of the ceremony now, I would like to introduce Lillian Tully from Bargara State School.
Good morning, veterans, servicemen and women, and community members. Anzac Day is a day for gratitude, and today, along with Australians everywhere, we gather to remember and show our respect to those who have served to defend Australia. My name is Lillian Tully, and I attend Bargara State School. Every year, since grade 1, I have participated in the dawn service by marching with Bargara State School. And since grade 3, I've had the privilege of singing the Australian and New Zealand national anthems with my fellow choir members. When I do this, it makes me feel very proud to help honour the Anzacs who fought in the war. I hear the waves splashing on our beautiful Bargara beaches, where I'm lucky to spend my weekends playing with my friends. And I think how lucky we are to live free in our beautiful country. For me, the most moving part of the Anzac Day service is the last post. In military tradition, the last post is the bugle call that signifies the end of the day's activities. While the last post is playing, it makes me think about all the servicemen and women who have served in the wars, some of whom never returned. I think about how brave these young men and women were to leave their families behind and risk their lives for the pride and freedom of our country. There were so many people affected by the wars. I think about the brave servicemen fighting, manning ships, flying planes, and living in the trenches. But I also think about the many other people affected. There were young children and women left behind in Australia who had to take on the jobs and roles of the men who left to fight. There were also people working hard behind the scenes to keep our country running and to support war efforts. There were medical personnel caring for the injured, both overseas, on the battlefields, and here in Australia. In fact, my great-grandmother, Captain Erica Way, was a physiotherapist who served during World War II. She was stationed in the Northern Territory, caring for injured servicemen returning from war. Anzac Day makes me think about all that we lost during the war, but also brings to light the awesome fighting spirit of the Australians and the incredible stories of survival and hope. One of these stories is the story of S for Sugar. S for Sugar was a Lancaster bomber in World War II. This plane was flown by so many brave servicemen throughout the war. The average lifespan of a Lancaster bomber in World War II was 21 missions, with aircrew generally committed to a tour of 30. Not great odds for any aircrew. However, S for Sugar completed 137 operational flights over Germany and occupied Europe. This was in the top 3 of any Lancasters deployed in World War II. My great-grandfather, Pilot Officer Thomas North Schofield, captained S for Sugar on her 100th mission. A picture hangs on my grandfather's wall showing great-grandfather Tom standing at the cockpit of the Lancaster, surrounded by his fellow servicemen, celebrating the 100th mission's successful end. When I look at the picture, I think, how lucky was my great-grandfather to survive that mission? But now that I learn more about the war and the terrible losses, I think how amazing the spirit and the bravery of all those men who got into that plane time and time again and against all odds returned. Despite the really hard times they had faced and the fear they must have felt, they were able to work together to get through it. This shows the true spirit of Anzac Day and all it represents. In closing, on behalf of myself and all my peers at Bargara State School, I would like to thank the Australian and New Zealand men and women who have served Australia in past wars, as well as those who continue to sacrifice so much today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian. It's a wonderful reading. I would like to now introduce the Service Padre, Reverend Jennifer Lynn.
Thank you for the honour of being present here again in this role this year. We are gathered here in the sight of God as Australian citizens and as citizens of global humanity to honour the memory of those who've made the supreme sacrifice while serving our nation in times of war or during peacekeeping operations. We gather today humbly and we gather as one. Let's pray together. God of all time and space, as the dawn of a new day beckons, we gather here to celebrate our freedom and to remember and honour the events and the people which allow us today to be free. On this unique day, etched in our history and alive in our present, we do not seek to glorify war or conflict of any kind, yet we pay tribute to all who have lost their lives through involvement in wars, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. We especially remember those whose actions, mateship, camaraderie and sacrifice defined and continues to define the Anzac spirit. We remember those who paid the ultimate price. The price paid was huge, and it was paid by those who gave it all in so many ways, believing that their actions would deliver a better future for the generations to follow. For them, God, we give you thanks. We also honour those who served and returned, those who continue to serve in the defence of our great nation, and those who live in lands currently being torn apart by war. Today and every day, Let our actions bring honour to their memory and their mission as we embrace your divine values of justice, compassion, and love. God, make us instruments of your peace, we pray. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, may we bring pardon. Where there is doubt, may we sow faith. Where there is despair, hope. And where there is sadness, may we each bring joy. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
I'd now like to invite members of our official party and guests to lay wreaths. Ms. Liz Carson, representing Keith Pitt MP, Federal Member for Hinkler and the residents of the Hinkler electorate. Councillors May Mitchell and Vince Haberman OAM, representing the residents and staff of the Bundaberg Regional Council. Acting Inspector Glenn Cameron, representing the men and women of the Queensland Police Service. Jan Cumberford, representing the Bargara Members Committee. Service Padre, the Reverend Jennifer Lynn, representing the Bargara Uniting Church and the religious beliefs of the Bargara community. Mr. Michael Ollison, representing the Bargara Services Club and the Sandhill Sports Club. Mrs. Faye Chatham, representing the Bundaberg District Women's Veterans. Mr. Phil Dunkley, representing the Mayor and Villages of Vignacourt, France. Mr. Brian Sesson, representing the Coral Coast Christian Church. Ms. Rosalind Wilson and Leanne Spruce, commemorating the life and service of their grandfather, the late Major Charles August Whitcop, MC. He served with the 9th Battalion in France from 1916 to 1918. Injured at Pozières, July 1916, awarded the Military Cross at Lagnacourt. 8th of May 1917. Severely wounded again in battle of Ypres and returned to Australia March 1918. Served with the AN MEF in New Guinea from 1918 to 1920 and the Australian Military Forces from 1940 to 1942. Mrs. Isabel Barnes, commemorating the life and service of her father, the late Sergeant George Edward McLuhan, Royal Irish Rifles and Royal Artillery. He was incarcerated in Palembang POW Camp, Sumatra, and Changi POW Camp, Singapore. and her grandfather, Captain Joseph McLuhan, Royal Artillery, serving at the Somme in World War I. Izzy marches and wears her father's medals for the first time. Acting Inspector Glenn Cameron, representing the men and women of the Queensland Police Service. And Mr. Brian Chesson, representing the Coral Coast Christian Church. And Cynthia and Dave Hugerstraten, remembering the men and women who were incarcerated in prisoner of war camps all over the world during the wars. Let us remember the individuals who lost their lives in these inhumane camps and acknowledge the indomitable spirit of those who survived and to the Allied forces who set them free. Pastor Jennifer Lynn and Theodore McLaughlin, representing the Surf Church and Stoked. Ms. Helen Blackburn, Vice President, representing the member of Bundaberg Regional Ratepayers Association. Ms. Cheryl Rayson, representing the Bundaberg Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Michael Ollison, representing the Bundaberg Services and Sports Club. Patricia Williamson and Nola Medina, representing the Bargara Lions Club. Mr. John Lathoris, representing the Greek community of Bundaberg. Ms. Jana Klassen, representing the Wide Bay Hospital and Health Service. Students Harper Gross and Albie Cohen, representing the students and staff of the Bargara State School. College captains Molly Sellers and Cooper Leeson, representing the students and staff of Shalom College. Second? Okay. School captain Benjamin Rudd, representing the students and staff of St Anglican School. Students Heath Atkinson and Elena Crow, representing the staff and students of St Mary's Catholic School. Students Lawson, Hedke and Olivia Cronk, representing the students and staff of St John's Lutheran Primary School. Students Emma Hosking and Chelsea Penny, representing the Bundaberg Christian College. If there are any other members of the public who would like to lay a wreath, they can please do so now. And Mr. Kevin Garner, Defence Veterans Drop-In Centre. Copy that.
Parade! Stand at pace!
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just bear with us for one moment, we're also amongst the rain expecting a visit from above. Piper.
Parade, attention. Parade, stand that. Hey.
Should we do the... Thank you, Piper. This year the oration will be read shoulder to shoulder amongst the parade members. I'd like to invite Ms. Helen Blackburn to provide the oration.
Shoulder to shoulder. But each one, man for man, has won imperishable praise. Each has gained a glorious grave, not the burial vault of earth where they lie, but the living tomb of everlasting remembrance wherein their glory is enshrined. For the whole earth is a tomb of heroes. Monuments may rise and tablets be set up to them in their own land that no pen or chisel has traced, not on stone or brass, but on the living hearts of humanity. Take these men as your example. Like them, remember prosperity can only be for the free. That freedom is the sure possession of those alone who have the courage to defend it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you cast your eyes to the sky, you'll witness a T-28 Trojan World War II fighter ground attack aircraft, Mistress, piloted by Captain Ross Parker.
Anzac 2 East, Bargara base copy. Should be a strafing run. Anzac 2 East, Bargara base copy. One more. Your pilot this morning is Captain Ross Parker. And he used to fly for Cathay Pacific, but not like that. Anzac 2 Bargara base, copy the wingtip salute. Okay. Kurt, can we go to Sir, please?
Sir, would it help you if I shed a tear? I swear it's the first time since this time last year. My spine is a tingle and my throat is all dry as I stand to attention for all those that died. I watch the flag dancing halfway down the pole. That damn bugle player sends chills to my soul. I feel the pride and the sorrow. There's nothing the same as standing to attention on Anzac Day. So, sir, on behalf of the young and the free, will you take a message when you finally do leave? To your mates that are lying from Tobruk to the Somme, the legend of your bravery will always live on. I've welcomed Olympians back to our shores, I've cheered baggy green caps and watched Wallabies score. But when I watch you marching, sir, in that parade, I know these are the memories that never will fade. So, sir, on behalf of the young and the free, will you take a message when you finally do leave? It's the least we can do, sir, to repay the debt. We'll always remember you, lest we forget.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those able to stand, please do so and remove any headwear for the reading of the ode.
Parade, attention!
Shoulder to shoulder. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll just pause the proceedings for the moment while we clear a fallen soldier or sailor.
Parade, stand at peace.
Copy that. Parade Marshal, let's continue with the service.
What's up? Parade, attention!
Cattle party! Raise it! Arms!
This morning's national anthems will be sung by the choir of the Bargara State School under the direction of their music teacher, Mr. Nathan Carhill.
Parade, attention!
Ah!
Parade! Stand at peace!
Flag party, please lower your flags to half-mast.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can just get your attention for a moment. Where are you, John? John O'Callaghan has performed his role of parade marshal for the past 6 years with professionalism and with dignity. He served our veterans well. Yes, even those who are not attached to the Navy. He has decided that this will be his last parade. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him on behalf of this community and wish him and Rosemary all the best into the future.
Cadet Commander, please dismiss the guard.
Aye, aye, sir.
Parade!
Catafalque party, inward, turn.
Parade! Attention!
Catafalque party, quick, march.
Mr. O'Callaghan, please dismiss your parade.
Yes, sir. Guys, if you just follow the band and...
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending our Anzac Day service. It's wonderful to see you all here again, and it's wonderful to see the crowds come out, even though we have some very ordinary weather. Unfortunately, this year we're unable to partake in the two-up or the gunfire breakfast, but we hope to do those again next year. Look forward to meeting some of you very shortly. Thank you.
crowd a bit